first of all, I've got to say how nice it is to stand up to speak and not be booed before I start. Because I've just come back from Brussels, and believe me, the moment we stand up to speak, the atmosphere is like, you know, the worst football match you've ever been in, and you're the away side. It's unbelievable. So thank you for not booing me yet. I'm sure you might do later. I'm going to run through a few things that I've found in my brief time in Brussels that are relevant to what's going on in this country, and to give people an idea of what we're doing out there and the fight that we're having. And one of the first things I'll say, so close to the Remembrance commemorations, is I always thought that the wars that happened across Europe and the world in 1914 and in 1939, I thought they were known as the First and Second World Wars. But I was wrong. I was wrong. Apparently, and this may be news to you as it was to me, but apparently they were the first and second European civil wars. Apparently so. That's how they're referred to on the continent. That's the teaching that they're doing for the kids over there. They were civil wars. They weren't world wars at all. No. Now that example, as appalling as it is, will give you a lead into some of the thinking that goes on out there. Because it is like being in a parallel universe. For example, we speak about immigration, mass immigration, control of immigration, all sorts of things about it. To them, there is no issue. They can't understand. When we speak about it, they literally cannot understand what we're talking about. Because to them, it's no more peculiar than if one of you moved from Redditch and went down to London. Or Birmingham, or Manchester. No more peculiar at all. You're moving from one place to another within the same country. See, we've always talked in this country about the fear of a federal Europe and it's all becoming one, and we protect our sovereignty, and you know, different prime ministers, they stand up and they say, oh, there'll be no transfer of sovereignty, we'll have a referendum block. It's already happened. It's already happened. All of the things that we live in fear of have happened. We're out there as 24 UKIP MEPs in a parliament of 751, and we are the only ones who speak as if Britain is an independent country. And we're ridiculed for it. They actually look at us like we're insane. You know, what are you talking about? Well, this is absurd. You mustn't talk this way. It's already gone. And a couple of the things that might bring this home, it's not just me saying it, the European arrest warrant, which our government so shamefully hid as it was going through Westminster and got caught out. Another example of just how completely untrustworthy these people are. You know, you wouldn't buy a second-hand car off any of the people on the front bench of the government, that's for sure. But the European arrest warrant, and it was brilliantly spelled out by a West Midlands UKIP hero who spoke at the North West Conference recently that I managed to get back for, Christopher Gill. And what Christopher said was, perfectly good example of how this could work. Not only can this warrant take away your liberty, but it can destroy your reputation completely. Peter Jewell, a great advocate of patriotic Britain and a fighter against the EU, goes out on a trip to Brussels. Comes back to Britain, he's walking down the street in Redditch. He's arrested. Because guess what? There's been an accusation made that Peter Jewell, when he was in Brussels, stole a chicken. And Peter's well known for stealing chickens, obviously.
I'll give you one.
But you know what? He doesn't get the chance to argue against that until he's picked up and taken over to Brussels. And then by the time he's taken over to Brussels, and it's got in all the papers, Redditch, UKIP MP, chicken thief, headlines, you can see it now, UKIP foul herder, terrible news, what an awful man he is. And of course he gets heard, and he didn't do it. But it's too late. It's too late. Because the first knife always sticks. From there on in, whenever anyone hears the name Peter Jewell, MP for Redditch, what they're going to think of, oh my God, it's that bloke who stole the chicken. And, you know, it's a humorous example, but think of the connotations of it. there is no way of stopping this happening. Our government thinks it's a great idea. They'll tell you it will stop murderers and rapists and paedophiles. Maybe it will. Don't think so. But what it will do is allow countries with systems that we would not consider in any way fair or just to pick our people up and take them to be tried in a system that we don't think is right. Now you'd say, that can't happen. We're a sovereign country. But we're not. We aren't a sovereign country anymore. This is the thing that I've found out since I've gone over. This is a horrible, vile, awful truth. Great Britain is not independent. There is no system on earth that you could possibly say we're independent under. And then you'll say, well, don't worry. Don't worry, because David Cameron and the Conservatives, well, they're standing up for Britain. David Cameron will go through his best Churchillian mode and he'll tell us how he'll get us a referendum and he'll fight for Britain, and he's furious about the extra money we have to pay. Oh, you know, ever so red. And he's going to do his top button, he's that angry. Of course, one of the main things they did was he made a big protest about Mr. Juncker becoming the president of the Commission. We won't have him, we'll fight against him. And then he was in a minority of one and he lost. But then, there came to time for MEPs to ratify Mr. Juncker and his cronies to be the Commission. And we had a vote. Well, the Labour Party voted in favour. Of course they would, wouldn't they? Habitual yes men to the EU. Sell the country out at every opportunity. They love it. It's a big chance for them to wave the red flag. Fantastic, vote with the comrades, great. The Lib Dem, the one Lib Dem, voted for it. Because it's a great chance, European integration, we're all together, wonderful, and all, be happy and joyful together. The Greens voted for it. Because they're hugging onto trees with the rest of the Greens across Europe. They're loving it. The Conservatives, who back home tell you how patriotic they are and how they will stand up for Britain's interests, they took a very, very brave decision, ladies and gentlemen. They abstained. They looked at us as UKIP were the only party to vote against, and they laughed. Now, I don't think it's a laughing matter to lie to the British people and to pretend to be a patriot when you aren't. I think it's a disgusting lie. And that's what they do all the time. Every time we vote in favour of the British interest, they look across, and it's almost like kids in a playground. Yeah, you lost again, you lost again. It's not funny, chaps. A couple of other things before I sit down and allow the questions to flow, and I hope they do. And please, lots of questions afterwards. TTIP, the transatlantic trade deal. UKIP is instinctively a free trade party. We believe in free trade. We want industry to thrive and business and people to make money through their own hard work. We want that. But in this deal, there is a danger that if you don't allow fair competition, it's built into it that there is a possibility of a legal challenge. And you could have corporate lawyers challenging, saying, you've not been fair to us. You've not let us, our corporations, have a chance to bid. But the EU say, don't worry. Because if you've got a nationalised industry or a state sector, then that won't be affected by any of this. And all those people who worry about the NHS being sued by corporations, they're talking nonsense. Except for the fact that when I went into the committee meeting to ask the question, and I said, well, now that we have PFI deals in the NHS, it isn't purely 100% state-owned anymore. So can you promise us, and I'm here now as someone who wants to support a free trade deal with the United States, I want to support it, can you promise me that we will not have New York lawyers controlling our NHS? And the Commissioner said, I can promise you that because you're perfectly free to renationalise it and buy out the PFIs. Now think about that. What they're actually, because no one's suggesting that we've got the money to buy out the PFIs. there's hundreds of billions of pounds worth of tax being kicked down the line by the Labour Party. They think, oh, I have a new hospital, look how fantastic we are. It's not even on the balance books, because they're paying it back in 50 years to a private corporation lining their pockets. That's fine. But the truth of it is, the NHS is no longer in the state sector. People say, oh, UKIP will privatise the NHS. Guess what? It's already privatised. The European Commission have admitted as much. So when it comes the time for that TTIP deal to go through, supported by Labour, Conservatives, Liberals, and opposed by us and the Greens, to give them their due, New York lawyers can sue if their firms aren't getting what they consider a fair deal. And I went to a meeting with the US ambassador, and he said, well, you know, if you want to deal with us, that's the way it's going to be. Fair enough. So UKIP's stance on TTIP, you won't hear anywhere else, is, as long as that is in there, whether the NHS is under any kind of threat, we oppose it. And I was phoned up by someone from the Unite Trade Union and congratulated on asking a question about this, which I found quite funny, because the week before they paid for a boatload of students to come and call me scum. So, you know, I thought, well, fair enough, at least they're consistent in their inconsistency. And regionalisation, a real bugbear of mine. Again, something that no one thinks really what's happening. No one really understands what's happening. But I'll tell you what's happening. They said we're going to have a combined authority. It's happened in Manchester. It's going to happen in Newcastle. It's going to happen in Birmingham. They're going to call it the Greater Birmingham and try and suck in every authority they can. And the comrades who run the councils around Birmingham and the Black Country and Coventry, and God forbid they might be stretching out this far as well, you better watch out. They say, don't worry, it's so we can club together to have a stronger case to get a share of the funds from the government, and we can argue our case and work more effectively, centralised control, you know, the old Stalinism bits clicking in there, loving it, you know, they're singing the red flag and they're ever so happy. And it's all coming together. Now the thing is, it's not their idea. They're lying to you, or they're lying to us. The idea came from Brussels. The idea is that they have city regions. Now, the reason to have a city region, and I sit on the Regional Development Committee and I've heard this debate, I've sat there and heard this debate while Sir Albert Bohr, leader of Labour Council in Birmingham, and Roger Lawrence, leader of the Labour Council in Wolverhampton, were in the same room. The idea is that in these city regions, they'll fund them. There's 350 billion euros between now and 2020 that these city regions can tap into. And you can have a new road, or an overpass, or whatever, you know, all sorts of things, as long as you sign up to what the Commission wants. And to go with your money for your new road, you've got to hit your carbon emission reduction targets, your amount of different minority groups, male and female gender equalities within the workplace. All of these proportions are going to be equally done. It's all of the dreams of equality that end up with no one being equal. All these things that have been rejected. You get all these things, and that, you'll do them as long as you have. If you don't have the money, you've got to do these things. And you'll get things like congestion charging, and you'll have to pay to have your waste removed. Because in writing it says that people have got to have their behaviour modified because of how we're damaging the planet. And they're going to modify our behaviour by taxing us and charging us for things we took for granted. So when you hear about Greater Birmingham councils or these super boroughs coming together, I'll tell you now where it's coming from. It's coming from Brussels. So we hear all the things that I've said there. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's much more going on. That
British people need British.
We'll talk to you in a minute.
much more going on. And I'm keeping it deliberately short so that we've got time for the questions. But I will say to you that in May there's a general election. And May is the last best chance for freedom in this country. Because this cities agenda I spoke to you about with the regions, it's called Cities 2020. by 2020, the control mechanisms that they're trying to put into place to bypass what's left of sovereign governments will be in place. Whoever you vote for will have no say. They'll be figures. They won't actually have a say in any of it. This is happening now. It sounds dramatic, it sounds frightening, and it sounds like I might be some kind of conspiracy nut, but I'm not. And I'm happy to show you. I've got video clips, I've got all the paperwork. I'm happy for anyone to contact me and talk to me about it. It's happening now. The only possibility we've got to stop it, we are that close to the midnight hour. The only chance is in May for us to elect UKIP representatives to Westminster. People like Peter who will stand up and say, hang on a minute, no, we won't settle for this, and we won't sell out on any dirty little deals either. That's our last chance. Time's running out. We can't do it on our own. We need all the help we can get. We need everyone to strain every sinew. If you have any element of doubt at all in your heart or mind, please ask the questions now, because I'd love to think that everyone leaves this room tonight thinking, right, next year I'm going to do my bit, because I want to be a free British person and not a subject of EU domination and all that comes with it. So I hope that next year we can change things and stamp our mark and say, Britons never, never, never shall be slaves. Thank you.